Hello, this is Yogeshwar 7000 again, and I'm back with another interesting topic in Vedic astrology today. And today's topic is a little special, and we'll be discussing about the birth chart of the great independence activist Subhash Chandra Bose, who died in mysterious circumstances. And until date, there's a lot of theories as to how he died. There are conspiracy theories around him as to he did not die as has been recorded in history. You know, he was subject to some kind of an imprisonment or some kind of conspiracy or some kind of death by poisoning, or he's still alive, or he did not die as reported in history, but he did die much later when he attained the age of 90. He was hiding somewhere in India. There are so many theories, and as a matter of fact, I read this new theory in the newspapers today which said that there's a French theory which says that no, he did not die in the air crash as has been reported in history. So let's see what history says about Subhash Chandra Bose, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. He was born in January 23rd. He was born on January 23rd, 1897 in Cuttack, India, and he died on August the 18th, 1945 in Taipei, Taiwan, in a plane crash. Okay, that's been recorded in history, but nobody believes it. Well, people believe it, but many people do not believe in, and there are, you know, tens of theories around how he died. And by the way, for viewers who do not know much about Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, he was an independence activist, and he was involved in India's freedom struggle from the British, but he adopted a different path which Mahatma Gandhi was adopting. He did not believe in the non-violent path adopted by Mahatma Gandhi. He instead took up to arms. He raised an army, and that army fought with the British, and initially they had some gains, but later on they had to retreat back because of the situation of his supporting countries, which were Japan and Germany. When Japan and Germany started to take hits, then they could not support Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose against the British as much, and as a result, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's army suffered losses and were pushed back by the British from India. But in the meanwhile, there were reports, and it was recorded, that he died in a plane crash on August the 18th, 1945 in Taipei, Taiwan. So let's look at his birth chart and see what actually could have happened, because as I've already mentioned that in my earlier videos, that astrologers have a slight edge, a slight advantage, because you know, they take the help of planets to figure out certain things which are beyond you know, the understanding of the practical world, so as to say. So astrologers have an added advantage here. So let's use that advantage, that tool of Jyotish, to figure out how Subhash Chandra Bose could have died. Did he really die in that air crash, or was there some kind of another theory? Was he really hiding? Would he really hide? How could he have died? Whether he lived a long life or not? So all these factors we can look through his birth chart. So as per astrology, you can see his birth chart on the screen, and as per astrology, he was born, or as per his astrological chart, he was born on January 23rd, 1897, and the birth time is 12:15 in the afternoon, and the place he was born in Cuttack, India, 12:15 around noon time. As you can see, sun is right at on the 10th house, you can see there on the screen. So let's look at what could have happened to Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. So first of all, you know, we know that when Saturn is placed in the 8th house, as it is placed in Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's chart, it gives a very long life. Okay, so why didn't he get a long life? 1897 was his year of birth, and he died in 45, so he was hardly 48 years. So why didn't he have a long life? That's question number one. So as astrologers, you should understand that Mars, if you look at Mars here sitting in the second house, it is directly aspecting Saturn. So that has affected longevity, definitely. But was Mars behind his death? Because Mars is sitting in the second house, again, which becomes, second house is a Maraka house, and Mars is sitting there, and Mars is a major malefic. So do you think Mars could have contributed? Because Mars is a planet of accidents. Could it have contributed to Netaji Subhash Bose's death? That we have to see. But Mars is also the lord of the ascendant, so it will not become a Maraka in this case. So how did he die? Based on this birth chart, we have to figure out here. So let's see what kind of a dasha was Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose running at the time of his death. He died, according to reports, he died on August 18th, 1945. So the dasha which was running at that time was Jupiter, was the main dasha, or the main period. Moon was the Antardasha, or the sub period, and Venus was the sub period, or the Pratyanta Dasha. Okay, so based on his chart, we know that Jupiter is not a Maraka for Aries. As you see, the lord of the second house and the lord of the seventh house, the major Maraka is Venus. Okay, because it lords over two Maraka houses. Mars is not going to be a Maraka, we've already discussed, because it's a lord of the Lagna. It will not inflict death, but it's definitely going to affect longevity, because it's directly aspecting the 8th house of longevity. It's directly aspecting Saturn, which is also sitting in the 8th house of longevity. So that is one major indication that longevity is affected here in this birth chart. Okay, so the theory would say is that he may have lived until 90, or he may have be still living, or that theory, as per this astrological principle, does not hold true, as we can see on the birth chart. The second thing is that he died in the period of Jupiter, Moon, and Venus, and Venus, as we know, is a major Maraka there. Okay, so that also confirms that he died in the sub period of Venus, which is a major Maraka for his birth chart, because it's loaded by Venus is loaded by the 7th house, which is a Maraka house, and so also loaded by the 2nd house, which is a Maraka house as well. Why did he die in the, why he could have died in the main period of Jupiter is, once again, Mars is aspecting Jupiter through its 4th house aspect. And from Jupiter, which is the Dasha Lord, you see here the 7th house from Jupiter is also having the planet Venus sitting there. So Venus, once again, you know, first it's based on his birth chart, it's lording the 7th house, it becomes a Maraka. Second, based on his birth chart, it's lording the 7th house, the 2nd and the 7th both, based on his major birth chart or his original Rashi chart at the time of his birth. It is a Maraka. And here, as per the Dasha Kundali, from Jupiter, it is sitting in the 7th house, and again it becomes a major Maraka. And thirdly, what confirmation we get here is that when he died, as per the recorded history, he died in the major period of Jupiter, Moon, and Venus. And Venus was the sub period that time. Venus was the lord of Venus was the dasha, rather. I'm wording it incorrectly. The right word is the dasha of Venus, or the sub dasha was Venus was running at the time of his birth. Okay, because main period was Jupiter, sub period was Moon, and the sub period was that of Venus. So that again confirms that Venus is a Maraka, and that period when he died, he was under a major influence of Venus. Why? Because once again, originally Venus lords his 7th house of which is a Maraka house. It lords its 2nd house, which is again a Maraka house. The second thing was that from the lord of the Lagna, Jupiter, Venus is sitting in the 7th house, again a Maraka house, and Venus is right there. And thirdly, the period of Jupiter, Moon, and Venus was running at the time of his death. So all these three things confirm that yes, there is a very good possibility that he did die on the day his death was recorded in history. Okay, and also we see that Mars is aspecting Jupiter in his main Rashi chart, and Mars, as we know, is a planet of accidents, and once again Mars is affecting his 8th house, thereby affecting his longevity, and also, you know, aspecting Saturn directly, and we know that Mars and Saturn are not friends at all. Okay, so until this point we have come to a slight conclusion. I will not say a complete conclusion, that everything looks okay as far as his death is concerned during the Jupiter, Moon, Venus period, and based on his birth chart and based on his dasha chart. Okay, now let's go to the transits. What transits were running at the time of his birth, at the time of his death, which was August the 18th, 1945. So let's see what was running at the time of his death. So what was running was Mars again was transiting. So that's the transit chart we are getting for August 18, 1945. Mars was again transiting his 2nd house. Okay, so it was transiting in Taurus. Again, Mars becomes Maraka, but once again, since it's the lord of the Lagna, it will not influence the death majorly. But once again, you see that the Maraka planet, which is Venus, for his birth chart, in the transit chart of August 18, 1945, it was sitting with Saturn and Rahu, 3rd house from the Lagna, or 3rd house from Aries. Okay, and as we know that 3rd house is a malefic house, so the Maraka is, first of all, it's sitting in the 3rd house, which is a malefic house in the transit chart. Okay, and on top of that, it is sitting along with Saturn within 4 degrees, and Saturn, as we know, is a major malefic for his birth chart as well. And Rahu is also sitting along with Venus. Okay, so from the transit chart, the 7th house from Aries is Libra, and the lord of Libra, as we know, Venus, which is a major Maraka for him, is sitting in the 3rd house in the transit chart along with Saturn and Rahu. Okay, so Saturn and Rahu is air element. Okay, and he died in an air crash, so that gives us an indication once again that, you know, it could be an air crash right there, because the Maraka in transit, and Maraka, you know, basic Maraka as Venus, as we know, is sitting with Saturn, which is also a malefic for him, and Rahu also, which is a malefic planet, and both are air elements, so he died in an air crash. So that also confirms the death. Now let's look at his transit, the transit chart from Moon. So from Moon, once again, as per his transit chart from Moon, Mars is sitting in the 7th house, and Mars again is a planet of accidents, and it is sitting in the 2nd house, in the 7th house, not the 2nd house, I apologize, in the 7th house from Moon. Mars is sitting in the 7th house from Moon. So again, it becomes a Maraka here, although it is a lord of the Lagna once again, so it may not harm as much, but again, in transit it could harm, because Mars is a planet of accidents. and Venus is sitting the 8th house from Moon in his transit chart, along with Saturn and Rahu once again. Thereby, Saturn and Rahu are affecting his longevity while sitting with Venus in the 8th house from Moon in his transit chart. Okay, so that again gives us an indication that longevity is affected based on his transit chart, and the longevity is affected by two planets majorly. Three planets. One is Venus, which is a major Maraka, and also under an influence of Saturn and Rahu, which are air element planets. And again, this confirms the air crash which he went through. Okay, so that is based on the transit chart. We have come to a slight conclusion again that yes, he could have died during this period, and when planets based on the transits which were happening on August 18, 1945. Okay, thirdly, we know that since Rahu was involved with Venus, which is his Maraka planet, and which also was the cause of his death here until this point we have concluded, then there could be a slight conspiracy, or there is a possibility for conspiracy, because Rahu is a planet of conspiracy. Okay, so there could be a conspiracy behind the air crash. Okay, that we also can come to this kind of a slight conclusion here as well, that it could be a case of conspiracy because of which the air crash may have occurred. But we definitely know that, you know, he was not supposed to live long. We definitely know that Saturn and Rahu were heavily involved, and Venus, of course, were heavily involved in his death. And we definitely know that he was running the dasha, the sub dasha of Venus at that time, and also the transit of Venus was also bad while Venus was sitting with Saturn and Rahu. So this also confirms that yes, you know, there is a good possibility that he did die in an air crash, and there was a conspiracy behind it. And that's more or less our final conclusion here, that yes, you know, he did not stay alive until 90 as per several theories which are going around, and also that, you know, he did not live long enough and he died in an air crash, and that was an accident. We know that, and it shows very clearly that yes, he did die in an air crash, but then the cause of the air crash might have been some kind of a conspiracy by countries whom, you know, he had allied with, or who were his allies, like Japan and Germany, who did not probably want their secrets to go out, so didn't want to have him stay alive. That's one kind of a theory which can be more or less concluded out of this analysis of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's chart. So hopefully you did enjoy this video on a case study on the death of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. And meanwhile, I will recommend do your own analysis as well. Do it based on Gemini principles, do it based on Bhrigu principles, do it based on you know, Parashar or any other scholar. Do not base your conclusion on any modern day astrologer, because they have their own new theories, brand new theories, which sometimes do not make a lot of sense. And meanwhile, I will recommend subscribe to my channel as well. Check out my website, there is a link below, and I will see you with an interesting topic in Vedic astrology in my next session very soon. Goodbye.